What's up, YouTube? And welcome back to another clip from our first herpetological panel forum all about rainbow boas. There's a link here if you want to watch the full hour-and-a-half long Zoom meeting. Feel free to skip ahead about 8 minutes to when it actually gets going. But this clip is all about rainbow boa morphs. And we talk a little bit about ball pythons, because unless you've been living under a rock, snake pun intended, you know that ball pythons really kicked off the whole morph craze in the United States and around the world. Well, there's some really exciting rainbow boa morphs as well, ranging from some crazy patterns, your typical albinos, hypos, and a lot of beautiful colors. So Ike, Dave, John, and Steven discuss rainbow boa morphs and really get into it for you guys. Check it out. I've seen enough of your guys' Facebook profiles to know that we're not a ball python group of hobbyists, right? There's not a ton of overlap between the two. But I think it'd be a little bit foolish to not recognize the fact that they're an incredibly docile animal that got people into the snake craze in large numbers many decades ago. Tell me, let's start with you, Ike. What's your opinion on ball pythons, and what can we learn from them? So, like, in a positive light, what can we learn from the ball python market and the morphs, and what people have done with them?
Okay, well, there's a lot of positives that come with ball pythons. It seems like 9 out of 10 hobbyists get into the hobby because they want to have a pet ball python. That's what they know. That's what's popular or has been popular for years. And a lot of people that that's the gateway drug for them, so to speak. And then they get hooked on reptiles, and they find out that there's a bunch of neat snakes out there that aren't quite as common. You don't see at every reptile show, and they start to get excited and finding other snakes like rainbow boas, carpet pythons, and all these things. So it gets people into the hobby. Different color morphs, all that stuff is fun, and so it's kind of also we can learn some things about the genetics and other things that can be applied to rainbow boas that have already been proven out with ball pythons. So there's a lot of good that comes along with the bad.
Absolutely. And so let's move forward. So I did want to talk. Thank you, Ike. I did want to talk about the morph market for rainbow boas too, right? So John, I think actually let's go around. So real quick, we know there's a few rainbow boa morphs out there. Let's do kind of a round robin, just one answer, and then we'll dive into it. Dave, what's your favorite morph to work with?
I'd have to say my candy stripes.
The candy stripes?
They're gorgeous looking animals.
They're gorgeous, absolutely. John, what about you?
I'm actually more into the pattern morphs than the color morphs. I've got some of Dave's candy stripes, some nice ones, and I really love them. One that I particularly like is the Wipeout that Aubrey Ross came out with years and years ago. That's probably one of my favorites as well.
Awesome. Steve, what about you? Do you have a favorite one that you're working with or that you'd like to be working with?
Yeah, I'm working with the calicos right now, and also the Costos.
Awesome. What about you, Mike? Yeah, go ahead.
But I love Dave's black candy.
His what?
His black candy stripe.
Oh, the black candy stripe.
Yes.
What about you, Ike?
I'd have to probably say the colors are my main thing. It's really impossible for me to pick one morph necessarily. But I'm into the rainbow boas. Quick, I'm sorry guys, my dog's barking in the background. But I like all the colors. So I'm not as much into the pattern morphs as I am into the different varieties of colors that you can find the rainbow boas in.
Nice. Dave, what do we have?
This is one of my candy stripes. That's just a single gene.
Right. So that's a incomplete dominant.
The connected dorsal striping and just the brighter red coloring.
Yeah, you can see how the stripes are connected, or the dorsal.
All these just connect one after another.
And so was that an incomplete dominant gene that gets?
That's an incomplete dominant. This will be a single gene expression.
Okay. the heterozygous form. Awesome. And so tell me, Dave, since we were on you, tell me what you think about, because I think a lot of us are seeing the sort of the emergence of morphs more and more readily. What do you guys think is the future for morphs in rainbow boas? Where do you think that market is taking us?
Well, it seems to be going strong. Just like anything else, though, the morphs tend to drive the morphs tend to have a higher price tag, and therefore they're harder to find the right home for. This is another candy stripe. This is a super candy.
So let me interrupt you a little bit then, because one, that's a gorgeous snake, but two, when you say that's a bit of they ask for a bit of a higher price than the normals, what are like some of the top end morphs going for? Like so people have an understanding.
Well, I sold the first super candy stripe this year for $16,000.
Right.
That's a fair chunk of change for anyone to fork out. It's more than I've ever spent for a snake.
Yeah. And so does that go to someone who's going to be breeding them? And you know, don't have to say who, or they're just for a pet?
Absolutely. No, nobody. Well, I guess there are people rich enough to want to have one and don't care. But for the most part, that's going to be somebody that's thinking they're going to breed it and get their money back out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe in 5 years from now, super candy stripes aren't worth $16,000.
Oh no, they'll come down.
But they could still, maybe fetch a few for each, and after 15 snakes.
Well, I mean, here's an example of an albino. And this one, the original wild caught albino, sold for $75,000.
Yeah.
His first generation of visuals, which was 2 generations down the process because it's recessive, those started out at around $30,000.
Wow.
They're now down to around $5,000 for a baby. So that's an example of the evolution of the price, how it comes down. As more and more produced, it's that straight up law of supply and demand. Where there's no supply and there's a demand, the price goes sky high. But as the supply goes up, the prices come down.
Well, let me interject too, because what you're saying may scare people into paying those prices. When you buy a rainbow boa, if you buy for $30,000 an albino and it's not going to breed, you're not going to produce albinos for at least 5 years. Well, if that price comes down to $5,000, that's okay. You're going to make 10, 15 babies. You're going to get your money back. So don't be scared to spend that money.
Yeah, my pair of het albinos that produced this albino cost $20,000, and that was down from the $25,000 that they were at to begin with. And
you made all your money back and then some.
Babies to sell at $5,000, and you've made your money back.
Mm-hmm.
The albino project is very profitable at this point in time for me. At a pair for $20,000 into it.
And I mean, the secret's out with your albinos, Ike, that we saw on Facebook recently too. You should weigh in here too. What do you think is the future for the morph market with rainbow boas?
Oh well, I mean, the future is looking awesome. These morphs are just really coming on the scene, and they're just starting to get crossed in with each other and getting some awesome combos that'll be coming out in years to come. There's a lot more people getting excited about rainbow boas in general, and that's exciting. I think the future is great. It's going to be interesting. There's going to be a lot of new things coming on the scene. And we've got pioneers like Dave out there cranking out crazy stuff for all of us. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks for sharing those two, by the way, Dave. I saw your booth for a little bit at the last Anaheim show, and I was kind of like speechless. I'd never seen those animals in person before. And like a rainbow boa is pretty, and I'm a big fan of wild types to begin with, but I don't think people are grasping just how crazy unique some of these morphs are. So thank you for having some of those.
Hey, Steven, can I jump in for a minute?
Please.
So I've been to Dave's house quite a bit, and One time, my daughter, my 5-year-old, said to me, she goes, "God, Daddy, this is like Toys R Us for you." I said, "Yes, this is Rainbow R Us." You know, and Dave's so gracious, and you know, and he opens up his home and he shows me all his snakes, and you're right. Pictures and videos really don't do them any justice until you see them in person. He produces beautiful snakes, and I just go in there. I want every one of them, you know. But I don't have big pockets, so I'll just admire them, you know.
Yeah, they're awesome.
As beautiful and interesting as the morphs are, this is just a simple, bright red rainbow boa. So just the normals are gorgeous. Which is one of the things I like about the rainbow boas above the ball pythons is the normal snake is, well, first off, it's interesting because it has a little bit of attitude, a little bit of personality. And the second is they're just gorgeous by themselves.
Talk to me about that. How did you get
all kinds of fancy paint jobs on them, and you got a ball python with a fancy paint job.
Well, talk to me about that. The high red then. So how did that come about? Because that's not a morph.
That's not a morph. It's just like you're breeding people for tall people. You put two tall people together, and you have typically going to have a tall child. Same thing with the rainbow boas. You put two. You hold back two that have bright red color, and you breed them together. And more often than not, the babies are going to come out in a bell curve around the parents, and then you get even higher red. Couple 3 generations down, you're getting insane stuff.
Yeah, that's gonna be my next question. So just in like 3 or 4 generations, you could have stuff that's that red?
Oh yeah. This one I believe is 2 generations in.
Awesome. Did anyone want to add anything on to the morph conversation before we move on?
I think. Yeah. Can I say one thing? Still?
Please.
On the subject, I think. One thing that a lot of people don't really understand about these high-colored animals, you see people asking, "Can I get a red? Can I get a red? Can I get a red?"
Yeah.
But the thing is, you can get a red, you can get an orange, you can get every shade in between the two, and you may not always know what that baby is going to turn out to be. The best thing you can do is you look at the parents, and you get a good general idea, and then you compare the babies with the other babies in the litter. But you still never know. Sometimes the ugly ducklings turn out great. Sometimes the nicest looking baby in the litter kind of ends up to be just kind of average by the end. And so that's one fun thing about rainbow boas, though. And that's kind of an exciting thing about them. You know, you get to see the different colors, and you're always shooting for the nicest red. At least that's what I am. But, you know, you might find some other colors along the way, and that's fun.
Can I add one thing to that? You know, a lot of people say, oh, you know, he's breeding high reds. But every high red and extreme red pairing, you're not going to get all high red babies. So that's why there's such limited amount every year. You know, you're going to get some normal looking babies, not high colored babies. And there's a misconception, just because someone breeds high reds, they're going to have umpteenth number of high reds every year when everyone wants them.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Wow, so there's quite a lot of variation in rainbow boa morphs, but one of the most popular things in the hobby is really looking after high color animals too. So there's a lot of line breeding that goes into that. So I'm glad the guys got a chance to explain that to you. Well, that's it for today. As always, please like and subscribe to this channel, share a video, and comment down below if you want to discuss anything else in depth, or if you have any questions that you feel like weren't covered in the video. Be happy to get to them. There's some other links here for some of the other commonly asked questions about rainbow boas and the full meeting as well if you didn't get a chance to check that out. That's it for today, guys. I'll see you next time.